If you love Star Wars and love the excitement of chasing your favorite Star Wars collectibles, the Star Wars Digital Card Trader Collecting app from Topps is for you. Download the free app from iTunes or Google Play and collect your favorite images from the classic 1977 Star Wars cards to the Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels, The Force Awakens, and much more. Collect and trade with friends new and old through the Star Wars Digital Card Trader Collecting app from Topps. These are the cards you're looking for.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are. With Dan Z and Corey Clubb, the podcast you're looking for. This is. Yes.
For an entire generation, people have experienced Star Wars the only way it's been possible, on the TV screen. But if you've only seen it this way, you haven't seen it at all.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
We've been waiting for you.
The force is strong here. Even stronger than the coffee.
At last! Where have you been?
Welcome to Coffee with Kenobi. Here are your hosts, Dan Z and Corey Clubb.
Welcome to show number 60 of Coffee with Kenobi, a Star Wars podcast that analyzes our favorite saga in a whole new way. I'm Corey Clubb, and with me is my good friend and co-host, Dan Z.
As we get ever so close to Rogue One, we want to thank Jason Hall, Dennis Keithley, Angela Souse, Mediocre Jedi, Adam Leonard, Christopher Ripley, Swara Salih, Jared Cantor, BJ Smith, Eric Struthers, Nick DiCo, Aaron Harris, Mark Suter, and Mike Audette for their contributions to our Coffee with Kenobi Patreon page. You help keep the show running and help to give fans a voice, and we appreciate it so much. If you would like to be a Patreon contributor, you may receive CWK t-shirts, coffee mugs, and are automatically entered into a drawing to a Coffee with Kenobi show where you are in charge. It's your coffee chat. You come up with a topic and host the show with us, and it's a lot of fun. Check out our webpage or the show notes for more information.
In today's show, our first ever mystery guest joins us as we discuss our topic for show number 60, the nature of the Force. We also look at where we will be for the premiere of Rogue One, discuss Dan's adventures over the past month or so, talk with members of the Coffee with Kenobi family about Rancho Obi-Wan, and Nick DiCo gives us some exciting updates in the world of Star Wars video games.
Jason Brame also returns as we take a look at what's going on in the world of the canonical Star Wars universe. And in collector news, we look at this Coffee with Kenobi holiday gift guide and talk about the Nissan Rogue One Limited Edition. So pull up a chair, grab your favorite coffee mug, and let's have some Coffee with Kenobi.
And now, let's see what's brewing in the Star Wars universe this week.
Oh, wait. This is interesting.
You found something.
I'm about to let everyone in on the secret.
For our first news story, obviously we're a little under 8 days, less than that. I think it's a week away.
Yeah, at the time of this recording.
From this recording, yeah, from the premiere of Star Wars Rogue One, Star Wars story. And Dan, we've got our tickets a little while back, and that's always a fun time because it was kind of like a midnight release, and we were kind of going back and forth, like, you know, how long we can stay up, and kind of waiting for the time to tick down, and waiting for like the browser to refresh, basically. And we're kind of hunting around for the best place to go. And where we live, there's a couple of different options, I guess. But there's one place that's kind of fun to go and kind of exclusive, I guess, because it's in a museum, and the museum has what's called a giant screen. Now, this is not like the IMAX style screen. It's just like a regular kind of, I guess, museum quality.
It's much wider.
Yeah, it's kind of wider, and the seating is like kind of that straight up feel.
It's like you're on top of the screen.
Yeah, exactly. You're standing like kind of in front of that screen and looking right on it, rather than kind of towards the back, I guess. And we got tickets for that Thursday, the first showing in 2D. And we're recording live, Dan. It's gonna be so much fun. We're excited to be able to do this again. Hopefully everything goes smoothly and the Force is with us, and we can organize ourselves. I'm for one get nervous. I know I'm sure you do too. And you know,
I get excited.
You excited, nerves.
I get fired up. I'm kind of like a thing where when I know that people are watching, I mean, it helps as a teacher that I feel this way, because otherwise it would be much harder to do what I do for a living.
Sure.
But when I know people are listening and I'm on stage or whatever, I feel like there's like adrenaline, and I just get pumped up, and I think it's a lot of fun, and you kick butt. I mean, I know that you get a little trepidatious, but all the live shows we've done, you've always been amazing. So you
saving your bacon, right? Our last live show was
that's right. You're saving my bacon.
Walking with Mason and kind of coaxing him along and getting him appreciated for the Star Wars Reads Day, which was a lot of fun too. Check that show out. We're gonna have a lot of fun in our little hometown community there, doing a fun Star Wars Reads Day, kind of a live show, just kind of experimenting with things. But I'm looking forward to this Pure Museum and being able to see it, on the big screen there, and we're just we're counting down the days and getting very excited for this. So,
and if you are in the Central Illinois area and you know about the Pure Museum, we're going to be at the 7:00 show. We're going to be there hours before broadcasting. One of the resident experts in the planetarium is going to talk to us about science and the science of Star Wars. We've got some, pre-Rogue One excitement, and then just like we did for The Force Awakens, after we see Rogue One, then our next show you're going to hear our initial thoughts, and then you're going to hear how we feel immediately after seeing it. So it's fun. That show last year was very well received, and I'm looking forward to applying that to Rogue One.
And speaking of special events, Dan, you've kind of been the world traveler here in a sense. Last few months, you've had some great experiences. You were over visiting Lucasfilm and doing all kinds of fun things. But you also got a fun trip to go out to London and have some experiences out there. Tell us a little about, I guess, how did it kind of, how was the trip in the sense of actually traveling overseas? To me, it seems like it would be nerve-wracking and not knowing exactly what you would be doing overseas. And then taking along, the Coffee With Kenobi hat, if you will, and kind of giving an idea of what you experienced there.
Yeah, it was fun. It was sort of like there was in 1 week. I went to London and went to Pinewood Studios, where they filmed The Force Awakens and Rogue One and Episode 8 and future Star Wars films, I would imagine.
And you probably walked where, Wookiees walked, right?
Yeah, or Harrison, right? I will say, when I was there, the James Bond soundstage was up and running, and on Facebook you could, when you were you tag a location that said James Bond soundstage.
Well, that's interesting.
That is pretty cool.
That's very nice.
That was
a lot of history there, right?
Oh my goodness, there's all these pictures on the walls in Pinewood Studios of all the films that have been done there, and it just kind of blows your mind. But in a week span, I went to London. The Cubs won the World Series.
That's right.
And I went to Lucasfilm and Rancho Obi-Wan. That's a good week.
Yeah.
It's a really good week.
It's crazy because, I mean, not only this, but you're also juggling kind of, obviously your family and your career, your job, your teaching, and you're in the kind of the throes of all this. I mean, you're talking like there's so much going on. Have you ever felt like this much excitement about things, like a week-long version of just like one thing after another? Did you ever feel like tiresome, or like, oh man, I just feel so drained out of just because of pure excitement?
It's the opposite. I feel like it fills my tank up even more. One of the things I've always sort of believed in is to fill your life with experiences and to always challenge yourself. I took scuba diving courses a number of years ago because I always wanted to do it. And because I wanted to challenge myself. I knew that was uncomfortable. I knew that was scary. Heck, if you screw up when you're doing scuba, you could die, right?
That's right.
I don't mean that in a reckless way. I mean more like I would just like pushing myself and trying to find new ways of experiencing this amazing place that we call life in a safe, intelligent, rational way, of course. But I loved it. It was very exciting. I felt like I just had more and more energy, and it gave me all these different ideas of things that you and I have talked about, both on the air and things that are coming in the future. So it was fun. So what you asked me about, London, I heard from Gillette, and they wanted us to go out to London for a Rogue One event. And they didn't really tell us what it was at the time, but we knew it was related to Gillette, and they had a new campaign, Every Face Tells a Story. So I met a number of people, and this is what it was like. We walked into this little meet and greet at the hotel, and everybody starts saying who they are and their affiliates, who they're with. So Huffington Post is there, Hollywood Reporter, Variety, Men's Health, Men's Fitness, the Boston Globe, in Coffee with Kenobi. So one of these things is not like the other, right?
You didn't rip your shirt off, right? I mean, like, rip your shirt off, and it's like, hey, this is Men's Health right here. No? Is that okay? I just don't know if that's...
No, that's why they sent me instead of you. Because we got
I say you have the face of Star Wars. Great. Yeah, it's good. It's good.
No, it was just kind of wonderful and flattering and humbling, and I don't know. Everyone was so nice. Because of that, we ended up in the Huffington Post for an article.
Nice.
We've had a lot of fun little opportunities that have happened through that, and it's all because of a mutual love of Star Wars. And that was one of the things that struck me. We went to Pinewood Studios, and they showed us the very first commercial, the first airing of that commercial for Rogue One, and Every Face Tells a Story. And they had these little booths where they had professionals there that could tell you the best way to have your beard or what your haircut should look like. And we did one on Facebook Live about that, and it was really entertaining. I mostly did just to make my wife laugh, and I think that worked really well. And then they had all the costumes on display. I wrote about this on StarWars.com, and so there's where the pictures are if you want to see them. But they had all the costumes from Rogue One, and they were great. And I was really drawn to the Death Troopers, of course, and there's just so much taller. That was the first time I got to see Cassian Andor's costume up close, and I'm really becoming more and more drawn to him. And I think it's because he wears a blue parka like Han in The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, it's interesting too. It's seeing those costumes up close. I know we saw those in Anaheim as well for The Force Awakens, and I'm not one for like, oh, it's a costume, yay, so we wore this on their body. But like the intricacies of the way they're crafted is just incredible. I mean, it's something that's people take hours and hours, obviously, to just get it just right. And there's these little details that are significant to certain aspects of the film that I'm sure we'll get to see. But like you said, getting to see that up close, you kind of get a more idea of that character and who they are.
And absolutely, I think that's why I enjoyed it so much. I'm walking around taking pictures, and the lighting's tricky, and I'm certainly no photographer by any stretch of the imagination. But all of a sudden, I look up, and there's James Burns.
Sure.
And so I'm like, hey, James, and he's like, did you fly over here? And James is like,
yes, my arms are very tired.
I apologize, James. James is like the nicest, sweetest man I don't know. I think I've ever met in Star Wars fandom. I mean, and you talked to them, and we met Freddie in Anaheim.
That's right.
The guy's unbelievably great, as is his partner in crime, the dynamic duo with Mark Newbold. Mark is also obviously wonderful. We've credited him many times for helping our show to have opportunities that would not have normally had, and he's always been so great. So I got to talk to them. I got to be on their show, interviewed them for our show for a little bit, heard their insights into things, and it was just a really fun community because you had Star Wars fans, you had fitness people, you had people who were in charge of men's health and fitness, and people who were interested in food and fashion, and they were walking around with champagne and hors d'oeuvres and food I'd never heard or seen. But it was great. It was just Gillette really knew how to throw a party, and I'm so grateful again to them for doing that. We also participated just this week at the time of this recording of helping Gillette share the 12 days till Rogue One, kind of like a 12 days of Christmas thing, and we were day 7. Nice. So that was pretty fun to do that and work with them. It's been great. Then I went to Rancho and Lucasfilm. It's my second time at Lucasfilm, and went around, and I went on a tour with Dan Brooks. He took us around, and we had Mark Newbold and James Burns. So I saw them 2 weekends in a row, once in London, one in San Francisco, which is pretty crazy. I really got to know them well. And then also on the tour was Brian Cameron, and then the bearded fellow from Jedi News. I'm so sorry. He hosts Take Cover with Brian Cameron. They're awesome dudes. And also Jimmy Mack from Rebel Force Radio.
Oh, nice.
And I think that was, and I feel very fortunate because, I met him years and years and years ago. And we haven't really talked to them in a while. They're busy, we're busy, and whatever. But I re-met him again in the Lucasfilm company store. Mm-hmm. And I started telling him, hey, I've met. And I started telling him the story because he and I met at this exhibit, The Science Myth of Star Wars, years and years ago. And he and I and his son hung out and ate lunch together and stuff. And all of a sudden it clicked. He's like, hey, I do remember you. And he's like, wait, you're Coffee with Kenobi? And he's like, oh, I see you guys all the time. He actually cajoled me into buying a Java the Hutt t-shirt in their Lucasfilm coffee house. And so then he on Rebel Force Radio was very kind and eloquent about our show and about me, and I was really appreciative. That's cool. You know, he also showed me around a little bit in Rancho in the library, and that was fun too.
Well,
what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, I mean, that's awesome. I think it's so cool to connect with these guys that kind of do what we do in a sense, and get the professional side of it, like you said, covering stories and such, but also can kind of hang out and be able to relax and have a good time with one another and just enjoy each other's company, get to know each other once in a while, and make a connection and kind of network what our shows and stuff. And I think it's what makes kind of this podcasting community so rich, and I think it's great connections like that continues to blossom our fandom for each other.
Absolutely, man. Well said. It was fun. So then the next day was, actually, I do want to say one of the things I also got to do was I got to have coffee.
Yay.
With Andy Gutierrez and Leland Chee.
Awesome.
Now that's pretty sweet, right?
That's pretty great.
You know why it's great too? We didn't talk at all about Star Wars. We talked about our we talked about our families.
Yeah.
We just sort of talked about experiences in the World Series, and it was just there. I can honestly tell everybody, and I'm sure anyone who's seen them or heard them knows this, but they're genuine, sincere, good people, and so I was appreciate that. That was a lot of fun. So I went to Rancho the next day. That was my first time.
Yeah.
Ever being at Rancho, and I actually videoed it. I haven't released the video yet for some reason. It's just sitting on my phone. But Marcus Doring videoed me walking down the steps of Rancho for the first time, and it was a sincere reaction because I was just so floored. Maybe I'll just put that in the show notes, this video. But it's just great. It's different than I expected. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm sure you have in your mind an idea of Rancho. We show up and.
That's right. Our lightsabers ignite and we run in and crazy.
There's this sign-in place. It's all outside at first. You sign in and they give you your badge and they kind of tell you how the auction is going to work and things like that. Mm-hmm. And then you walk in and I literally turn the corner and Steve Sansley walks down the stairs. I'm like, hey, Steve. And he's like, hey, how's it going, Dan? And I thought that was just fun. And he shook my hand and said, I haven't been here before. He said, well, welcome. So we walk in and I see Jimmy Mack and James Burns, and they're in Steve's office. And so they're talking and they say, hey, come in here. This is pretty much the only time you get to go in Steve's office because regular tours you don't, but the gala is different. So I look in there, and then Jimmy Mack and I went to the library, which may be my favorite part of Rancho Obi-Wan. It's got this cool area with thousands of Star Wars books, and they're all pristine and organized in certain ways, and the bookshelves themselves are labeled, and the organization freak in me was so happy. It was so cool. And then I turn the corner and I go down the stairs, and they videoed me walking in for the first time, and there's this huge tube of all of the Kenner Star Wars action figures in perfect condition. And then I see the ACT up top, and there's all these shelves, and I see all the old Kenner stuff, and then here's Star Wars lunchboxes, here's Star Wars toothpaste. The Rancho Obi-Wan bathroom is full of the coolest stuff, like toothpaste, toothbrushes, lotion, toilet paper, everything. It's just stunning. So, I mean, the most fun besides walking around and experiencing that, and you get the whole place to yourself, is, I ran into Steve 10 or 11 times, and by the end of the night, he was giving me a hug, and I thought, this is a cool thing. I highly recommend people check out the gala because you get to know people and chat with them. I mean, Pablo was there. He goes, hey, Dan, how's it going? I'm like, oh, and I actually said out loud stupidly, oh my gosh, Pablo Hidalgo knows my name. And he laughed. He laughed. Thank goodness he's so cool and he's got a good sense of humor. Talked with Leland for a while, met his wife. And then one of the highlights, I walked right up to Dave Filoni.
Yeah.
He's sitting there talking to people. And I said, hey, shook his hand. I said, I'm with Coffee with Kenobi. I do a little bit of writing for StarWars.com. And I had a Lucasfilm sweatshirt on. And he says, oh, hey, thanks for wearing that. I love your sweatshirt. That helps keep me in business, keeps me having a job. And he laughed.
That's right.
Yeah, he was really gracious. I shook his hand. I said, look, we'd love to have you on the show sometime. And he was really, nice and cordial. Sure. And, he didn't give me the brush off. He was just he's a cool dude. And you know that because you've seen him in Anaheim.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then later, he and I and Concetta were talking, Concetta Parker, about the Cubs for a while, and
That's
then
cool.
he explained icing to me and hockey, and we talked for a little bit, and he was a nice guy. It was a really great experience, Corey. I wish you could have been there. It's just a very before I asked, is this like Celebration? But it's not. It's just so much more intimate. It's like, Andy was there. I met her fiance, and everybody's just talking to you like you're at like a office holiday party. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't talk highly enough about it. I got to talk with Jeff Long for a long time, and his fiance, and Marcus, Dorian, and I hung out a little bit, and they're just so much fun to be had. I don't know. I'm talking a lot. Do you have any questions?
No, but I love to hear your stories and the way that you get excited about it too. And I also want to tell folks too. I mean, like, I don't necessarily go out and do a lot of these things too because I'm just a different kind of fan, I guess, that way. I mean, people wonder, like, how come Corey doesn't do these kind of fun things, traveling to London and whatnot? And I'm okay with you living vicariously through you, if that makes sense. And we do things together. We both do things together all the time. Heck, we just got, interviewed by our local newspaper for an article that comes out next week. But it's things that I think that, like, we balanced it just right. And you do things you want to do. I do things I want to do. But I love hearing your stories. I love hearing your excitement. And it just gives gravity to this whole, thing we call Star Wars, and this whole thing we call this community. And just reinforces this for me as a fan. It gets me excited for upcoming things we have for 2017, and all kinds of fun things coming up for us in the future. And it's fun to be able to talk with you and hear how much you experienced it and how much you got out of it as well too. I mean, like, people always are excited to hear, like, about these events, and like, oh, I don't know if I'll go or not, or what's going to be like, and you give a very clear picture of how it is and how people act, and you're not trying to make it more so or make it less than it should be. So I think you do a great job, and I'm excited for you.
You're very kind. I thank you, sir. I mean, this train of ours rolls because of how we balance each other, and I appreciate that very much. Glad the Force brought us together. I also want to give a shout out to Brian Sims, who was the first time I got to meet him. I actually met him at Lucasfilm. He was doing a tour, and it was his first time there, and we talked quite a bit at Rancho, and he's an excellent photographer, and he did that thing where I was with the Woloskis. Now can I forget Sarah and the Woloskis were there, and they were just so much fun. They were entertaining. I actually sat with them for the wine tasting, and it was just a good time. It's just fun to see so many people there.
It's fun because I love how you keep popping up with memories, like, oh yeah, this person was there, this person's there.
Yeah,
I think that's so cool to be able to be like, you can continue to relive, the folks you got to interact with and talk with, and then get back, jump back online and be able to, like, hey, remember that one time we did this or that, or you see pictures pop up. It's so much fun to be connected this way, and so again, like, I'm excited for events to come and more fun to be had.
Well, hello there again, my Coffee with Kenobi friends. This is your friendly Force Ghost, Saint Nick DiCo, the month of December 2016, with all things Star Wars video games. For you today, hot off the presses, we have a new downloadable content for Battlefront Scarif, and we have some new video games on the horizon as well. So let's jump right in while you're enjoying some delicious eggnog or some hot cocoa and getting settled in for a long winter's nap and getting a chance hopefully to play some new Star Wars video games. First, before we talk about my review of Battlefront's newest DLC, Scarif, I want to let you guys know about a new game coming out for mobile devices, which is great news. We've lost two fantastic games and titles for the mobile device and the console this past year in 2016. But it looks like maybe before the year is over, we will get what's called Star Wars Force Arena, which subtly dropped a new 30-second trailer, which you can currently view on YouTube. And the game is being hailed as a mix between Clash Royale and Marvel vs. Capcom. So where you get an ability to really kind of develop your own team and identity with this new game, and you're also connecting with other players, friends, online for 1 versus 1 or 2 versus 2 player battles. And It's going to launch with a plethora of characters, and it looks like characters from all across the Star Wars universe. We're talking Clone Wars, the Rebels TV show, the prequels, the original trilogy, perhaps the new trilogy as well. So there's going to be a cast of characters coming along with this game, which is currently being missed for the EA game, which is very popular, the Galaxy of Heroes, which I've talked about before. So keep on the lookout for that. As I've said, it's only a 30-second trailer out on YouTube right now. It looks like it's a lot of fun, but there's not much more for me to tell you until it drops, which hopefully will happen between now and the next time I do my review for Coffee with Kenobi. Outside of that, this is the week I'm recording of Rogue One, so there's a ton of more Rogue One stuff happening, including more items for Star Wars Commanders, which is currently out, Commando, which is currently out on all mobile devices. If you haven't updated it since early in December, go right ahead and jump right in and do it, because you're missing out on some fun stuff. Looks like they have some security droids, some TIE Strikers now available to play as and use. So there is lots of stuff happening in that game as well. So if you haven't had a chance to update it, I would definitely jump in and do it now. But if you're anxiously waiting my review on what Scarif is for Battlefront, wait no longer. I've had the great pleasure of spending a ton of evenings these past week since it launched a week ago, playing all the fun new game versions for Scarif, all the new levels and the maps. And I have to say, it has definitely given Battlefront a more fleshed out feeling that it really needed when it dropped this time last year. So let's talk about Scarif in detail without giving any spoilers away. I will say that if you want to be spoiler free, if you haven't seen the movie yet, I would go ahead and perhaps maybe this month skip the rest of the segment for myself, and I'll give you a few seconds to go ahead and just skip ahead to the rest of Corey and Darren's conversations for December. All right, if you're still with me, fantastic. That means you've either seen the movie or you've played the game, so I won't be spoiling much for you. But in Scarif, we definitely get a good insight into potentially how the movie plays out with Infiltration, which is its newest mode. It is 3 levels, just like Battle Station, and it lets you kind of go through the chronological order of what potentially the movie is going to be looking like, where you have U-Wings blasting through Imperial blockades, trying to get to the surface of Scarif. And you're, as a rebel, you're either in a U-Wing trying to get through the shield protecting Scarif, or as an X-Wing pilot, you're trying to protect your U-Wings and shoot down TIE fighters. And basically, as a TIE fighter, you're trying to destroy everybody before they can get through the shield barrier. The next stage, it actually has you going to try to blow up a cargo ship, providing a distraction, which does look like we see in the actual trailers for this movie for Rogue One. So it's pretty easy to say that these events are probably based on some of the insight that EA was given from Disney about how Rogue One is actually being played out. And the last part of it is actually getting data tapes to the drop point, to the extraction point, much like you had to in the Death Star version, where you had to get R2-D2 to the extraction point and get him off the Death Star, which is not canon, but we can all imagine perhaps that happened. So in reality, this game definitely highlights a lot of what the movie is probably going to be about, but also it really does make Battlefront a much more enjoyable game with this new gameplay. Infiltration adds an immense level of difficulty. I will say that I think at least I've played Infiltration 12 times as Imperials and Rebels, and I've only seen the Rebels win once. And I don't know what was about that one time. Maybe everybody just gave up and what have you, but and maybe it's just me and the times I'm playing it, but finding time in the evenings after all the kids go to bed and having some times before midnight, powering on the Xbox and getting a chance to play it. It is definitely hard. Infiltration and Turning Point, I would say, is probably harder than Extraction on the Death Star. However, while that might be a negative in some people's eyes, I think it's definitely it could be either way. If you like a challenge, if you like the heart pounding rush of really trying to win that battle, win that game, because it's not easy, then you'll really enjoy it. I will say the positives for this game is that for this DLC, is the backdrop. Scarif looks gorgeous. It really fleshes out a lot of what the movie is probably going to bring to the screen. And Infiltration and Turning Point are definitely worth the price of admission. I would say that they equal and rival the fun gameplay that Battle Station has, definitely more so than Blast in the Death Star or in any version of this game. But the heroes Jin and Krennic also are fantastic to play as. I got a chance to play both, and I also Krennic's cape is legit. It's definitely legitimate. I fear his cape more than I do fear the man. On top of that, a little bit about some of the negatives of the game, of the DLC for me at this point, is that it can be at some points just madness for both infiltration on the ground when you're the rebels or the Empire trying to stop the rebels from succeeding on the ground. It descends into just to a crazy laser shooting bloodbath on Scarif, because it's so tight. It's just as tight as the Death Star. And if you played the game, you kind of probably know what I'm talking about. Is that you're right on top of each other. Strategy starts going out the window, and you're just throwing troopers or rebel soldiers at your endpoint, trying to get power-ups and hopefully win and push through as hard as you can. So in that point, it definitely does take away some of the skill level for the game. It would be great if EA learned from this a little bit more and allowed us to have some voice chat to actually communicate with each other in a way, especially if you don't have a lot of friends on there, to talk to other players or kind of figure out the best strategy. Because after a while, when you get down to those last few minutes, it's just all hell breaks loose. Excuse my French, but it really does. And another part is that I was really looking forward to flying the U-Wing around the planet of Scarif, and from the trailer for the DLC, maybe I was looking into it too much, but you don't get to fly the U-Wing. You're just the gunner with no control over the ship itself. So that's a little disappointing, because you're just going in a circle around this very small map island on Scarif and just trying to hopefully hit somebody. And you don't get to fly any TIE Strikers either, whether in space or on the ground. I don't believe they're supposed to be in space. It looks like they're just ground-based starfighters. So you just call them in as an airstrike, like you would call in an orbital strike. So you don't really have to get to dictate where that strike is going in a way, less than you would an orbital strike. So a little disappointing there. I'm not sure what they were thinking with that, and maybe they weren't trying to give too much away with the movie. So that's understandable, much like perhaps Jakku and The Force Awakens released last year when this game came out. That being said, I would say for me, over the last year, Scarif is definitely tied for the best map or the slash DLC with the Death Star. I think both those maps that EA has created, they have created very specific worlds to play in, and they're not open sandboxes like many of us hope they would have been. But still, they bring a very welcomed high-intensity gameplay to this game that we've all been very happy about seeing since Battlefront has been dormant for quite a long time. And I think these last two DLCs really show that EA is on the right path, with Battlefront 2 coming out sometime next year. But that the franchise is in good hands despite a lot of the setbacks or flaws we might have seen with this game earlier on. I think they're listening to the fans. They're understanding what we want out of a game like this and how we want to be immersed in both the canon and the legends of Star Wars in our video games. So with that, it brings me to a close for 2016 and all the video games in review. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful, happy holidays and Merry Christmas. And may the Force be with you in the new year.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Star Wars The Canon Explained on Coffee with Kenobi, a look at all things in the Star Wars canon. There has been a lot that has happened since our last segment within the Star Wars canon, so let's dive right on in. Covering the time frame after Episode 2 Attack of the Clones, Star Wars Catalyst, a Rogue One story, is the most celebrated of recent releases. This story covers a span of time which crosses over Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith, ending at some point before the Tarkin novel. The book really explores the history of Galen Erso and Orson Krennic, informing us as to who they are and how they got to know each other. This gives us backstory to Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Some might consider it critical to read before the film, but having not yet seen the film, I cannot imagine that would be the case. One might find it thoroughly enjoying to read after the film. Covering the time frame between Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith and 4 A New Hope, we have the continuing adventures of the crew of the Ghost in Star Wars Rebels. We had The Last Battle, a pivotal episode in the canon blending the world of the Clone Wars and the classic trilogy as the characters come to terms with who actually won the Clone Wars. Imperial Super Commandos, which shows us a turn for the worst at the Mandalorian outpost headed by Finn Rao. It seems the grasp of the Empire is everywhere. Iron Squadron was a fun episode with a band of kids trying to stick it to the Empire, only to find themselves in over their head. The Winkathu Job, where the Ghost teams up with Asmorgan and Hondo Anaka to try and secure some ammunitions for the rebellion. And An Inside Man, in which, well, you just have to see it to believe it, a turning point in our understanding of the series. If you picked up Rebels Magazine issue number 7, you were treated to 2 comics, Ocean Rescue, where Sabine and Ahsoka go on a mission to save an Imperial who is an old friend of Sabine's, feeding her information from the inside, and Secrets of Sinar, where Kanan and Zeb infiltrated a TIE fighter construction facility in an attempt to gain some information. These 2 stories take place somewhere around the beginning of Season 2 of Star Wars Rebels. Between Episode 4 A New Hope and 5 The Empire Strikes Back, Marvel's Star Wars issues number 24 and 25 finish up the last flight of the Harbinger story arc, as our heroes face the Scar Squad. What a fun story to see all of them working together against the Empire. Marvel's Han Solo issue number 5 finishes out the beloved miniseries as Han sorts out which of the rebel spies is actually an Imperial double agent, and the Dragon Void run, one of the most famous starship races in the galaxy, concludes. Marvel's Star Wars releases their 2nd annual, giving us a Leia-focused one-shot story, really diving into her philosophy about why she fights the Empire and what she stands for. There's a bit of an echo back to the Leia miniseries in this issue. And perhaps the most exciting thing from Marvel recently is the release of Dr. Aphra, issue number 1, our first comic story on a character who was originally designed as a supporting character. It is going to be very exciting to see her adventures develop. I sometimes get naysayers when I talk about adaptations or stories geared towards really young children, but I'm a huge fan of Star Wars Luke and the Lost Jedi Temple. This is an 8x8 fully illustrated children's book that adapts the young adult novel Weapon of a Jedi. I don't know about you, but I have never noticed them to take a non-film story and adapt it for a younger audience. Moving Target, between episodes 5 The Empire Strikes Back and 6 Return of the Jedi, got the same treatment in the book Leia and the Great Island Escape. Does that speak to the importance of these books in canon, or are they just easy to adapt, giving some fresh content for young readers? Only time will tell. Shortly after episode 6 Return of the Jedi, Turning Point, a short story in Star Wars Insider number 169, gives us a tale of a local citizen getting pulled in by the Empire to help them hunt down some rebels. The story supposedly has ties to Aftermath Life Debt, but I have yet to identify them. Please shoot me a note if you know exactly what connects these 2 stories. Moving ahead past episode 6 Return of the Jedi, Poe Dameron issues 7 and 8 give us a new story arc for Poe, as he tries to figure out how Agent Terex seems to know what is happening. Does Poe have a spy in his squadron? These are the canon stories that have been recently released, and there is much more to look forward to on the horizon. In the realm of comic books, Marvel continues its ongoing series with Poe Dameron, Star Wars, and Dr. Aphra all receiving new issues soon. Also coming soon is the Darth Maul miniseries. We do not expect this until February, but it's definitely worth keeping an eye out for. In our short-form stories, Titan Publications' Rebels magazine comes out with issue number 8 on December 20th, giving us 2 new comic stories that take place during Season 2 timeframe of Star Wars Rebels. Again from Titan Publications, Star Wars Insider number 170 will also release on December 20th, with the short story Voices of the Empire, which ties into both Catalyst, a Rogue One novel, and Rogue One, a Star Wars story. In children's books, we have the release of Adventures in Wild Space number 1, The Snare, and number 2, The Nest, in January. These were previously released in the United Kingdom, but have finally found their way to the United States. Fun stories that take place around the time of Season 1 of Star Wars Rebels. For those who look closely, there's a bit of a tie-in to other stuff happening in the galaxy, which makes them worth reading. Over at my YouTube channel, Star Wars The Canon Explained, I've completed a look at Marvel's Darth Vader, and also I am currently in the middle of covering the 4 TV shorts from Star Wars Rebels. If you're looking to catch up, refresh your memory, or hear my commentary on various stories in the Star Wars canon, head over to StarWarsTCE.com to check out those videos. This month's canon thought is more of an observation about the creative process behind the development of the canon. This time last year, we knew nothing of these characters from Rogue One, yet here we are, just days before the release of the film, and so many concepts and characters are now common amongst the fans. First off, Kyber crystals. There was a lore around them from the expanded universe, but now the canon has modified some of that lore. But we had no idea that the Kyber crystal mining was going to be so important, yet it showed up in Rebels as early as Season 1. Even the Ahsoka novel, which really does not connect to Rogue One, discusses the Empire's quest to acquire Kybers, which is now a pervasive story point throughout this era. Secondly, there was a huge build-up to the inclusion of Saw Gerrera in the lineup of Rogue One characters. Many probably asked, who? But since then, many have watched and rewatched the Onderon story arc from the Clone Wars, and now Saw is just as important a character in the narrative as others. If you really paid attention to The Last Battle, the recent Star Wars Rebels episode, you'll notice that the tactical droid in that story has ties to Onderon, which is a great callback to that arc. Sure, we haven't seen a lot from other characters, but it's the subtle introduction of concepts planting long-term seeds in the narrative so that when something happens, those of us who keep up with the stories are not lost wondering what's going on. It's actually quite incredible to think about all the effort that goes into crafting that narrative, and I look forward to finding out what other seeds have already been planted for stories to play out in the future. This has been Jason Brame with Star Wars The Canon Explained. Visit my YouTube channel for a look at the stories of the Star Wars canon and subscribe to get the latest updates. I can be found on Twitter at StarWarsTCE. And don't forget to listen to Comics with Kenobi for an in-depth look at each of the Marvel comics mentioned here. Now back to Dan and Corey and the rest of this month's episode of Coffee with Kenobi. This is the podcast you're looking for.
Han Solo, Rebel Soldier, Lando Calrissian, and Bespin Guard, each sold separately. From Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back collection, new from Kenner.
Looking? Found someone you have, I would say, Your lightsabers will make a fine addition to my collection.
For our first collector's news story, we did something that we hadn't done before, and I've just seen all these people were sending us gift guides, and I thought, wouldn't it be fun if we did our own gift guide, and plug the stuff that we're interested in? And so myself and Corey and quite a few members of the Coffee with Kenobi family contributed to this thing. It's featured on our webpage right now. As I was on it, Corey's on it, Matt Moore did something great on it, Aaron Harris, Luke Siders from Legends Library, Lisa Dollard did something for us, the great Lisa Dollard, I might add. Becca Benjamin added her talents, Jason Brame as well, and Dennis Keithley. And then Jay Krebs gave some awesome stuff on Rebels sweaters. Ryder, of course, had some cool Star Wars toothbrushes. I mean, it was a fun thing to do, wasn't it?
Absolutely. And I know you sent an email out to a lot of us kind of saying, hey, who's interested in doing this? We had a lot of great feedback from that. And I kind of got thinking about, what am I going to talk about? What am I going to choose for my gift, what type thing? And I thought, I'll do all the Rebel Funkos that are coming out. And I love to get some of those. And Aaron had come back and said, I'll do the Rebel Star Wars pops, and I was like, shoot. And then I kind of got on and looked at some other people's choices, and somebody said, I'll do the Rogue One Star Wars Art of Rogue One. Shoot, at least took that. And so it was kind of fun whittling down through my own list personally, and I had to kind of do some research to kind of find things, because as listeners know and family members know that I'm not a huge collector, and I kind of relate that to my review. Kind of find things that are unique and something different, and definitely check us out. I mean, we're getting close to Christmas as well. I know folks are looking for interesting things and fun things to get for their Star Wars friends and fans and family members, and I think it's such a great kind of a collection of different things, and folks can get on there and read about that. For our next news story, kind of a fun thing Dan expressed to me this week. He kind of sent me a text and said, hey, I'm going to go check out that Nissan Rogue One Limited Edition. And I was like, what? I didn't. It was so much fun to get that. And you're like, yeah, I have an appointment. I'm going to go check it out and kind of see what it's all about. And you got a chance to do that. And I didn't know, actually, I didn't know our local Nissan dealer had one. I guess, duh, me. Of course they would. But it's so cool to see something like that, online and seen on a national ad or something and then kind of see it in real life, and it's like, wow, this is something unique and really interesting, because it's always the way that they market films is interesting when they bring in items that are not necessarily, really related to that film. And this is kind of one of the things for me, I guess. Obviously, the Nissan Rogue, the vehicle itself, is, of course, make a Rogue One edition. It's a no-brainer to me. But the way they put it together is interesting, because there's a black and there's a white edition. And kind of tell some of walkthroughs you had. I know you've got some videos that you'd taken and some photos and stuff. So kind of walk us through, like, what was it like touching and feeling the wheel of harnessed energy?
Wow, well said, writer, Mr. Club. I reached out, and Letty Schmidt was here at our local Nissan, the Uftring Nissan. They actually have 4 Rogue Ones. They have 2 black and 2 white. And when I got there, I mean, she was great. I brought our oldest Peyton with us, and he videoed the whole thing. I'm really excited about putting that out there.
Yeah.
I really want to do more with our YouTube page. And I do want to say, by the way, for those of you who followed us and subscribed to us on YouTube, you may have noticed that page disappeared. Well, yes, and that's because we had a bit of an issue with something was happening with Google. We fixed it. We tweaked our account a little bit, so we basically had to rebuild our page over. And this is one of the things I think that's going to help do that. Peyton filmed I was talking to Letty about the Rogue One, and she gives us specs and details. I walk around these cars, and on one side is the Imperial cog, and the other side is the Rebel logo. And it's got on the sides, it's got this little Rogue One limited edition plaque. The back bumper says Star Wars. It's all cool, right? It's neat. Mm-hmm. And the chrome wheels, and it really slick looking cars. I kind of lean towards the black one myself.
Yeah.
And then my favorite part about it, though, and you'll see this in the video, is when you open it up, the door on the kick plate, or basically the thing you step on to get into the vehicle, Star Wars logo is there, and it lights up.
Oh,
and dude,
nice.
It is so cool. So cool. So we talked to them for a while. I don't know if you know this, but Nissan at the dealerships has these limited edition Rogue One keychains that you can only get at Nissan, and I got you one, by the way.
Oh, wow. Thanks very much, man. That's so cool. That's so much fun.
Yeah,
I drive a Ford, but I can put on the keychains.
It's all right. I got a few. So they're just nice. They're little Death Trooper helmets.
Oh, cool.
And 1 in 1,000 has a limited edition kind of glossy version of them. I don't have that, I don't think, but
okay.
It was nice. So we drove it. The trickiest thing for me was driving it out of the showroom.
Oh, wow.
Because
we didn't through the glass, did you?
Yeah. Well, didn't you see it on the news?
That's right.
No, they
Man arrested,
were coming. Yeah. Letty totally took care of us and got it in the showroom so we could get some good video and kind of look at it out of the elements. And they lined it up for me. And then I've been driving for a long time, longer than some of our listeners have even been alive, probably. And so they lined it up, and I went out really, really slowly because I thought, I don't want to smash the mirrors on this thing.
Yeah,
I mean, I like it, but I don't want to, come on. So we drove around for a while, and, it's got a Bose surround system. It's got this cool moonroof. It was a very smooth ride. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. It was cool knowing I was in a Star Wars car. So, I don't know if I'm going to buy that, but what I do know is that I got to test drive it and see it, and a very unique Star Wars collectible. I'm really excited to see if Steve's going to buy one of these things. They're cool. They're really fun.
Yeah, it's fun to see this too. I mean, like you said, it's a unique collectible, and it's not necessarily too out there, right? I mean, like for that fan that wants something a little bit different in a vehicle without driving around a giant X-wing, But this is something unique for fans to check out, and I suggest go do what Dan did. Just go to your local Nissan retailer and go for a test drive. I mean, it can't hurt, and go get some video and have some fun. Check it out for yourself.
So, Corey, we're going to talk for a few minutes. Thanks to our sponsor, Topps, the Topps Digital Card Trader Collecting app. There's so many cool things going on with the app, of course. You can get it on iTunes or Google Play, and it's free. We know that. We know you can open packs each day. There's free credits each day. You can trade with people. exclusive packs, variants. You can get autographs, which I believe you have a couple of.
I do.
There's just a lot going on with this app, isn't there?
Absolutely, Dan, and it's so much fun to do it right around when movies are premiering or they have special Star Wars events. A lot of the weekends too are like double credit, free credit weekends. They'll have like extra credits you can earn by doing some sponsored things and get double credits for that. But you can get in and you can get, I think they're on their 4th series of base cards, but they also have limited cards where there's signatures. They got Rogue One cards, they've got Rebels cards, they've got all kinds of stuff. So, any type of fan that wants to be able to collect a certain type of card, they can get those. And there's a lot of unique stuff too. I think there's a retro cards, there's all kinds of stuff, dark side, light side, and so many great new things coming out as well. I'm sure, obviously with Rogue One coming up very, very soon, they're going to be releasing some fun things and fun activities for you to do on the app.
Yeah, I mean, and you've got cards from the original trilogy, the prequels, Clone Wars, Rebels, The Force Awakens, and Rogue One. It's all there. You've got the comics, and there's just a lot of variety. And if you're a collector, or even if you're not, I mean, it sort of eliminates some of the challenges of collecting because storage is easy because it's on your phone or your mobile device or your iPad or what have you. And then it's free. I mean, there's certainly things you can do to increase chances of things, and that's a lot of fun too. There's some wonderful options for you, but it's a Star Wars digital card trader collecting app from Topps. You can download it, as I said, for free from iTunes or Google Play. Be sure to start your collection today because
these are the cards you're looking for.
Luke, you're going to find that many of the truths we cling to depend greatly on our own point of view.
I must be allowed to speak.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
Our topic for show number 59 is the nature of the Force. This topic was inspired by Pablo Hidalgo's Twitter account, as Pablo brought up some fascinating insights into the energy field that surrounds us, penetrates us, and binds the galaxy together. Now, joining us on this topic is a good friend of the show that knows a thing or two about Star Wars, but this person is also our first mystery guest. Mystery guest, could you please identify yourself?
Oh, why, hello there. It's me, Bobby Roberts, a podcast Force Ghost extraordinaire. I just sort of appear, apparate, just sort of show up in the middle of nowhere on all your favorite Star Wars podcasts. That's basically what I've been doing with my year ever since I left Full of Sith after the premiere of The Force Awakens. So it's been about a year, and you guys are catching me at a very interesting moment. This is the last Star Wars podcast thing I am going to do before I see Rogue One.
Wow.
Really? That's cool.
So I'm in a real weird place right now. I just found out where I'm going to be seeing it. And it only just like within the last hour really like slammed into my chest. I was like, oh, that's right. There's a new Star Wars movie that I will actually get to see. Like up until now, it's been sort of a vague thing on the horizon. It's like a thing that I know, but it hasn't really like solidified. There hasn't been that weight to the punch in the chest. But now it's like Donnie Yen himself is beating my heart with a stick. And I'm like, oh, Rogue One is coming.
What did it for me was this week's Star Wars show when they had the cast.
Oh yeah.
On the set, and then in my classroom I have the Star Wars Rogue One Kleenex box, and it's long run out of Kleenex, but it's still sitting there for everyone to enjoy. And I just look at Krennic, I'm like, holy crap! We're a week away from a brand new Star Wars experience. It's unlike any Star Wars movie we've ever seen.
Yeah, well, and the thing that really cemented it was like after I got the notification, like, yes, you will be seeing this, and I was like, Anthony Bresnikan of Entertainment Weekly, our good friend Anthony Bresnikan, shared 2 cues from Michael Giacchino's soundtrack. And you guys know me. Anyone who has heard me bounce around the Star Wars podcast realm in my Force Ghost aura knows that I am here for the soundtracks. I am here for that sweet, sweet music. And those 2 cues dropped, and I went through the roof. I was absolutely... I can't wait. I was floating. I was literally floating. I wasn't just podcast Force Ghost floating. Like I was elevated. It was great. So I cannot wait, and I'm really excited to talk to you guys about the power of the Force.
That's right. What a beautiful transition. You've done this before. So here's the thing, gentlemen. We've got Pablo in late September, and I saved him ever since then because I thought it would be a great topic. He tweeted out about 13 different tweets. The first one is really sort of him saying, heads up, here come a bunch of tweets, unsolicited views about the Force. Bear with me. And of course, when Pablo says that, it's like, let's pull up a stool and let's just get some coffee and listen to this guy wax poetic, because that's what he does. So the Force, we don't know how much the Force is going to be present in Rogue One, but we know it's going to be there. I mean, when I say present, I mean as far as there are no Jedi that we know of in this, but when they go to Jeddah, there's a lot of Force energy going on. And you mentioned Donnie Yen. I mean, he seems to be the one that channels it the most. So let's just go ahead and take what we know about this existing world of Star Wars and look at the Force. And Corey, you want to take the
sure, first chunk here?
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I'll start off with a few of them here. So it's at Pablo Hidalgo. Of course, we all know Pablo. He's kind of the encyclopedia of Star Wars, right? And great friend on Twitter and such. So the first one says, heads up, incoming tweet flood full of unsolicited views about the Force. About 14 or 15 tweets here. The next one says, a colleague of mine recently stated that everyone has and uses the Force, which raises some questions, but it's nonetheless true. The Force is life. If you ever felt a moment of connection with another or the world, you're using it. That's the idea. You can disbelieve in it, but you still have it. I'm sure old Ben wouldn't attribute Han's amazing piloting a luck to the Force. Han wouldn't. So that's the kind of the first chunk, and I'll kind of let you guys kind of ruminate about that stuff too. And that's kind of the overarching idea of how the Force kind of works.
And I'm going to copy and paste that first section in there so we can just sort of read it too. That'll make more sense. But basically, it boils down to this. Everyone has the Force and uses it, but he says it's true. He says it's just basically life. Bobby, take us away, sir.
I've always liked that interpretation. I know a lot of people, that whole midichlorians thing, and land speed record to getting to the midichlorians reference. But once you start talking about the Force, you have to address it. So I might as well get it out of the way. A lot of people's protestations towards the midichlorians came from a misunderstanding that says, just because you figured out a scientific way to quantify it, that means there are some people who have it and some people who don't. And what it means is that people figured out how to measure someone's ability to use it, but that doesn't necessarily mean nobody can use it. It just means people who don't have as many of those little symbiotic things in their blood would have to try real hard, would have to work real hard, would have to, concentrate to maybe like move a nickel, 3 seconds or so. But it's always seemed to me like, Yoda was the very first voice we heard speak on this. Up until Yoda started talking about it, all we knew about the Force was that it helped you wave a glow stick around so you didn't cut your own leg off. It made you disappear when you got hit with one of those glow sticks. You heard lying old men talking to you while you were trying to drive. That's really annoying. But you didn't really know too much about the Force beyond its sort of effect as a vague superpower. When Yoda starts talking about it, you realize it's basically a Zen philosophy. And it's talking about shared energy. It's talking about being one with your surroundings and your surroundings coming to bear on who you are as a person. And that's part of the reason so many people, Empire Strikes Back is a huge part of why people love Star Wars as much as they do. That movie just by itself, just the way it was crafted, the quality of it, that film, almost more than the original Star Wars, is probably what cemented a lot of people's love, not just for the storytelling, but for the depth. It made it less a fun thing and more a thing that you can spend a lot of time hanging out there. But I think it was when Yoda started talking in Empire Strikes Back that you start to realize, the Force as a philosophy can be something you can sink your teeth into. It can be allegorical. It's a mindset that you can take out of the movies and apply. You're not going to be able. You can stand in front of a supermarket door and move your hands as you get close to it. you're feeling the force. I understand that. But I mean, like, you can actually take some of those beliefs about who you are, your place in the world, the energy that you put out, the energy that you receive, and how to sort of let it flow through you, how to change it so you can make your circle of influence a better place. And I think that's largely how the Force speaks to us as people who enjoy this fiction and have enjoyed it for so long. So that's my thought on it surrounds us, it binds us, everyone can use it because, literally, yes, everyone can use it. If it's a mystical energy field that connects us all, that's nature, that's humanity, that's that's us.
That's the way it is. And when I thought about, and when we came up with this topic, I actually didn't even think about how midichlorians would fit in. I didn't even think about midichlorians at all. Mm-hmm. But now that you're talking, of course, how could I forget that? And I did an article in Insider a little bit ago about what midichlorians are and what do they do for the Force. And ultimately, when it's first talked about by Sir Alec Guinness, he says it's an energy field created by all living things. That's midichlorians. I mean, what else could it be? I mean, if it comes from us, and then Pablo reinforced that by saying it's life, it's basically saying you can disbelieve it or not, but it's there. Han would call it luck. Or no, he wouldn't say luck. He says in his experience there's no such thing as luck. But Ben says, no, that's actually the Force, whether Han believes it or not. And as I'm reading that and hearing you both kind of marinate on this, I'm thinking this says everything and it says nothing, because basically the Force is everything. Yeah. And I think that's, I mean, it's oxygen, it's luck, it's Buddha, it's Christianity, it's energy, it's karma, it's everything, right?
Yeah. I mean, and that's part of the
potpourri.
Yeah. I mean, and that's part of the broad blanket that, Mr. Lucas and all his collaborators on Star Wars were messing with. I mean, George was a hippie. He was a hippie nerd, but he was still a hippie. He loved that sort of stuff. Like, look how many, references to crystals he kept putting in those early drafts. Like, dude believed in the idea that, you surround yourself with crystals, you surround yourself with good people, you believe, and you put good energy out of the world, and good things will happen to you, and you can do things you otherwise would not be able to do through the power of spirit, through the power of community. It's not at all surprising that philosophy found its way into his story in like one of the most broad but still interesting and still, from a storytelling perspective, powerful uses. It makes perfect sense that that's how he would distill those ideas down and implement them into a serial pulp adventure story.
It's beautiful too, because I think that's sort of the genius of Pablo and just the idea of George in general, is that you can create this definition of something, but it's really still not totally defined, because it's sort of, it's there, it's everything. And so you can kind of pick and choose, and there's so much delicious ambiguity, which I love. Corey, why don't you weigh in?
I was going to say too, Han Solo is the perfect person to kind of, tell us about it too. I mean, in the beginning, it's almost like he's like, yeah, it kind of exists, but it's mumbo jumbo and it's nothing better than a blast at your side type thing. And I think it's a great way to put it too. I mean, it's something that kind of like binds everybody together as, like you said, Bobby, a community. I like that idea of togetherness. It's an interesting factor. But I mean, I always thought of it, growing up and seeing them films and such, there's always just a bad side and good side. And that's true. It's very true. And I think in our society and the way we, lend a helping hand or not lend a helping hand. And it's kind of turned that good human natured spirit of helping one another and using our physical and mental abilities to do good or do evil. So that's kind of how I kind of see it played out, and how I kind of grew up learning and thinking about how the Force exists.
When I hear you talk about it, it reminds me of that old Coke commercial where everyone's holding hands and I'd like to teach the world to sing.
But the polar bears? Is that? I don't know what that... Oh,
no,
boy.
This is pre-polar bears.
I see.
You probably weren't even born.
Oh, thanks.
At all. Although that sort of brings me back to the midichlorians thing, because the way Corey's talking about it, the way I'm fairly certain George initially conceived of it, and the way midichlorians tend to play out. I mean, I wish it was sort of highlighted a little bit more in the movies themselves, but I mean, you can read any sort of analysis or essay on The Phantom Menace and get a good and you know it was in there because people are very easily pulling it out. And the midichlorians sort of work in the same way like standardized testing works, like that bad high school counselor who's always got interesting ideas as to what your potential really is. Like that's sort of how midichlorians end up being in the storytelling. Like we've all got the Force, and we've all got a way to use the Force in our own special way, right? And midichlorians are sort of like that high school guidance counselor who has a rigid set of parameters that they're going to check you, an individual, by. And there's a box they're going to try and sort you into because it makes their job easier. And I think that's partially why the Jedi fall. That's partially why, they took their eyes off the ball. They stopped trusting in their religion. They stopped trusting in the thing that made them in tune with one another and the galaxy at large. And they start putting their faith in things like, standardized tests. They put their faith in quotas, in metrics that sort of try to attach a numerical number to something as unquantifiable as the human spirit. And I think once that becomes habitual, once that gets locked in, the only way to go is down, because you're treating the human spirit like it's a math problem you can solve, like it's basic algebra, and it's never going to be that. Again, I wish that had been stepped on a little bit harder and a little bit more clearly in the films themselves. In the films, you sort of get the sense that the idea was more or less introduced mostly so that when the council turns him down, Qui-Gon has something, numerical to point to show how out of touch they are. So, but how could you not admit him? Look at his midichlorian count. Oh, we're still not going to admit him. And then you go, oh, dumb Jedi. I mean,
it's kind of like his ACT score is a 32.
Exactly.
Yeah, but he's
Yeah, I mean, and you can tell that that's basically what he was driving for in the story, and there's a lot of utility there to it. I just don't think he stepped on it hard enough. But I do think, for me, that's how I look at midichlorians. Not that it's a dumb idea, because it's obviously not a dumb idea. It's an idea that we as mankind keep implementing and judging our own youth their potential by. So it's not necessarily a dumb idea in that it's implausible. It's very plausible. It's just that it wasn't introduced to the point where it really seats itself. It really makes itself solid in your gut as you're watching the movie. So you're like, oh, the Jedi are doing this all wrong. Like when it's first introduced, you're like, no, the Jedi got a system. You should probably trust in that system. Why would you second guess the Jedi? He's like, no, the whole series of films is setting you up to make you're supposed to second guess the Jedi. They're old. They're calcified. They're not doing it right. They are not doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is trusting in the Force, knowing that it surrounds us, that it binds us, that it really is all of us, all at once, living and enabling others to live. So the minute they start putting their trust and their faith in numbers and spreadsheets and lady chic razors, once they start doing that, then the downfall is on its way.
Well, here's the thing. I've just finally pieced in my mind ever since 1999, I've been thinking about this. It just hit me. The reason midichlorians work, here's why: water into wine. Okay. Yeah. If the Force is outside of us, it's an energy field. It's energy, right? Energy converts things. It converts matter. So I kind of take it as this, and I was never able to kind of express it until now. So midichlorians are created or there because the Force is the Force, right? It's kind of its own entity. It has a will. So people that are more Force sensitive, or that it wills to be Force sensitive, kind of imbibes them with these different little genetic things that help them physically to be more sensitive to listening to the Force, to being able to jump very high, to being able to run really far, or to deliver bad dialogue with charm. That's I think that's what the midichlorians are. Is that what you think?
Well, and that segues very cleanly into the next set of tweets that Pablo followed up with. He said, for gamers, note that I think every incarnation of the RPG gave Force points to everyone, regardless of Force sensitivity. E.g., we would cite Bruce Lee. In our world, he would be someone more in tune to the Force than most, hence his remarkable abilities.
Corey?
It's funny because I was thinking about this and I thought, every time I play a video game, it's always got little, little point systems of force powers, and you can only use your force powers so much and throw that lightsaber so far because it's low or high or whatever the case may be. And it's really cool, I think, that way, because it gives us a physical representation of the force, right? And you guys talk about midichlorians and the test and everything like that, and it's in filmmaking, we have to see something visual on the screen, right? We have to see something working, and I assume somebody would say something like, "Hey, let's talk more about the Force in Phantom Menace," and George was kind of like, "Okay, I know how to work this. I'll do a visual test," Mm-hmm. So we have to see something visual, also in an RPG game, or any video game, to kind of see something that sees the physical number, like you guys mentioned, that physical math equation right in front of our eyes, to kind of give that gravity to a bigger force user and a lower force user. So I think that definitely gives it some leniency there.
Yeah, well, and I also think that a lot of the problem people have with conceiving of the Force, and it's not really a problem, but it definitely causes misunderstandings when people in the community come together and try to talk about it, is that a lot of conceptions of the Force are coming from the video games, where you have to gamify the Force because it literally is a superpower. You have to turn it into something that you can manage like a resource. Like if I was playing Resident Evil, I would have to, this gun goes here. I can blend this thing and turn it into ammo for this other gun, but I can't carry this thing right now because there's only so much room in my briefcase. And that's how you have to treat the Force in a Star Wars game. Because if you turned everything all the way up to 11, like they did on Force Unleashed 2, which is one of the most broken games in Star Wars history.
Boogaloo.
Yeah, like it ends up not being as fun, and not just from a gameplay perspective, but from like a putting yourself in the shoes of someone using the Force perspective, because you don't get a sense of challenge. You don't get a sense of accomplishment. Like part of the reason people hook into Luke in the original trilogy is because you feel that sense of accomplishment with him when he is mastering the Force. And in a lot of video games, it's not so much a sense of accomplishment you're getting. It's you level grind until you can electrocute people from 5 miles away. And then you just spam that until you get to the next level. And the Force as a means to an end is perfectly valid when you're playing a video game, because the goal of the game is to have fun and to win. But then you take that mentality and you apply it to the films and to the books, and you're coming at it from a completely different perspective than someone who's trying to tell you a story, or someone who's there specifically for the story and the characterization. So I think that gaming, for as important as it is to Star Wars and as much fun as I have with it, like it seemed like Corey was describing Jedi Outcast or Jedi Academy for a second there, and I just nostalgia waves rolling over me as countless nights till 4 a.m. dueling people on those Jedi Knight 2 servers. All that stuff just rising up into the back of my mind. But I can see where that sort of mindset on the Force would clash with someone who was coming at it primarily from the movies or from the books.
Sure, because it doesn't always paint the entire picture, and it never will, and I'm grateful for that. But when he talks about setting Bruce Lee, he's more in tune to the Force than most, hence his remarkable abilities. That, to me, echoes kind of my gut feeling on midichlorians. He's been imbibed with more of them. He's more susceptible to its influence, and he is able to just sort of develop him physically. And again, if it's an energy field created by all living things, then there is spirituality and biology. I'm sort of excited. I find more peace with midichlorians now, talking to you two, than I think I've ever had.
Yeah. Well, I think Bruce Lee is...
Hallelujah.
Bruce Lee is, to me, he is like one of those guys that like...
He can jump over a car, for crying out loud.
Well, I mean, but like he trained nonstop. He was in tune with himself. He knew every little nook and cranny of how things would move. And you see that with, a lot of different people too, I think, in the acting world or in the martial arts, or the people who are just in tune with themselves. I guess their intuition is higher than others. They get it. They're responsive to each other are responsible to themselves. They know everything they're going to do and every move before they make it. And Bruce Lee is a great example of that. And you can see it in just the way he talks too. That he's not trying to be more than himself. He's being all of himself, if that makes sense. So I think it's a good example.
No, yeah, that's a perfect example, and it sort of speaks to another thing about the Force that I think it ends up being inspiring to people who are willing to let themselves, when they watch the movie over and over again, treat it as something more than just pure escapism, and are willing to sort of dive beneath the surface and see what sort of things are swimming around down there in the deep. I think that's one of the things that makes Star Wars inspirational, is the idea that there is something in you that you can focus on and do as well as anyone in Star Wars, any Jedi that you've ever seen does as well as they do. Like, it's a matter of finding what your specific force power is and then working at it. Like, you're never going there. There's like Bruce Lee was like
thing here.
Yeah, well, it's kind of because we're talking about Bruce Lee now, but like Bruce Lee was like, a tenth of a percent of the ultimate human, like like there's humanity all throughout the years, and then there's the tenth of a percent that Bruce Lee inhabits that none of us could get to, save for a miracle of genetics, right? But that did not stop him from coasting. He worked as hard as he could on every ounce of ability that he was given through genetics, and worked it until he idealized himself. Essentially, he attained the ideal Bruce Lee that anyone could have imagined. He actually worked his way to get there. And I might not be able to hit a ping pong ball with a nunchuck. That might never happen, no matter how much I work at it. But there is something to which I have a natural affinity. And if I want to put the time, the effort, and the concentration into centering myself, focusing myself, and applying myself, that's essentially using the Force, and I can do things that other human beings simply would not be able to do in that endeavor because of the Force. And I think
to that degree too.
Yeah.
You're talking about like that to me, it's, and I don't mean to cut you off.
No.
I just think about, if you use the sports metaphor, and Bruce Lee, he says Bruce Lee, he'd be more in tune than most, hence his remarkable abilities, but he exercises that through practice, through discipline. I think about a comparison I heard once about Michael Jordan and Larry Bird, both obviously insanely gifted, both blessed with natural ability, both work extremely hard, but just so happens, and I guess this is debatable, although not with me, and I am a Chicago guy, but Michael Jordan is so much better. I mean, Larry Bird described him as God in basketball shoes. They both had this amazing ability. They're both endowed with this, and they both work their butts off. But Jordan just has a little bit more, a lot bit more.
Well, and to take it back to the midichlorian thing, that would be an example of Jordan having a higher midichlorian count. But
exactly what I was thinking. Yeah.
But that didn't stop Larry Bird from being a person most people consider to still be the best small forward that ever played. So
absolutely.
So, I mean, I don't know if I would agree with that now that, Kevin Durant is around, or, or even that Scottie Pippen, I mean, you could seriously make the argument that Scottie was a better all around player than Larry. Now we're getting into the weeds. I'm sorry.
I'm happy with where this is going. I want to jump into something where he says, look, and I just sent this to you guys too. The next series of tweets, he says, look, it's not just physical abilities. Those that can sway large numbers of people for good or for bad are tapping into a connectivity. I can see the case made that exceptional minds of all kinds, Einstein, Hawking, Newton, are tapping into a world most can't see. Now, this is something, I'm not going to go into politics, but you can't help but think about them. I mean, the fact that the Force can sway large numbers of people. I mean, there are plenty of examples of good and evil people in history, as he says, that you can't help but think about it that way. It's just cool that it's not just physical.
Well, it's you don't want to get political about it and whatnot, but that's the truth, right? I mean, like, people who had good ideas, people latch onto that, and whether it's a good idea or a bad idea, people are going along with that.
You think it's a good idea,
right? I mean,
actually,
he lists Einstein, Hawking, and Newton, but I mean, Hitler he obviously had a corrupt mind, but everybody followed him and thought he had things going on and had the answers. Yeah. So it was like, it can be, like you said, I mean, it's used in a certain way, non-physical, and connects people and ideas together, and also can be used very poorly, right? I mean, so there's also that darkened edge.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and that gets to the dark side of the Force. Like we were talking earlier about how the Force surrounds us, binds us. I keep going back to that because it's true. Like the things that you put out there affect the world, and the way the world reflects that back to you affects you. You can get caught in a feedback loop, or you can take that loop and straighten it out and affect serious change as you and people around you are energized to move forward. That absolutely can be translated into politics. It can be translated into doing good community work. So you have the good aspects of that. You can look at Einstein. You can look at Stephen Hawking. You can look at Neil deGrasse Tyson. You can look at anybody who goes out there and advocates for a better future. And then you can flip the coin. You've got Richard Nixon. You've got Adolf Hitler. Like those are the two people that essentially George Lucas was basing the Emperor and the Empire on. Nazi Germany and 70s American politics. Like that's what he was doing. He was taking those elements and he was showing how you can, through that connection with people, through the way that you can cause those feedback loops, you can bend the world to your will. Instead of like putting out good vibes, instead of trying to be a good example for people and trying to get that sort of loop going where everyone is just trying to help everyone else out and make the world a better place and move us all forward, you can, if you want, pervert that. You can put out energy that confuses people, freaks them out, makes them scared, and then you can just basically get fat off that. You can, while they're running around in circles and pointing at 15 million different things, you can sit back and just skim off the top, reap all the rewards if you wanted to. That's the dark side of the Force. That's basic manipulation. You can basically just sort of manipulate and obfuscate, and that's part of the Force as well. I think that's absolutely a fair thing. I mean, and that's partially why it speaks to us as children as well. It says, here are your powers. These are the powers that you have. You can use them for good, or if you want to be a selfish little brat, you can use them for evil, and you might actually get a little bit powerful off of that. Like you can see what it is that Palpatine built. You can see how scary Darth Vader is. You can watch him crush people's windpipes within 5 minutes of meeting him for the first time. You can watch this other dude, this wrinkled old guy with like 15 butts glued to his face, electrocute the hero of the story at the end of Return of the Jedi. You can watch him do that, but it's not gonna end up well because there's basically Star Wars suggests in its storytelling that there's too much good in the world, no matter how much evil there might be out there, no matter how many bad people are manipulating you for their own personal ends, who are trying to twist the Force for their own means so that they can become fat and powerful and pervert what any of this means so that you are just as mean and confused as they are. Like you can buy into that, but there are too many people out there who are just basic and decent at their core to let that go on for long. And when the retribution comes, not only will you be defeated, not only will it hurt, but you will not be happy with yourself. And you are going to feel low and you are going to feel small because you know what it is that you did and you know that it was not right. And, that's scary. That's scarier than anything in any of the Star Wars movies. That's scarier than Palpatine, than Vader, than Grievous. It's partially why Harry Potter works as well as it does when it finally gets to its end, because the thing that really scares kids is the idea that Voldemort ends that story as just like this little quivering tiny thing underneath a table somewhere. Like that's what you get. At the end of the day, that is what you get when you pervert the forces of good for your own personal gain.
Which speaks to it being a piece of energy too. Corey, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, we kind of going through the tweets here. I love what you're saying, Bobby, and I hate to get off track, but I want to make sure we see all these as far as what Pablo had said. He has to bring up the whole midichlorian thing again for us, and he says, I think people understandably get caught up the whole midichlorian thing. They thought you must have X number of midichlorians to use the Force. There's no midichlorian prerequisite was only to enter the prequel era Jedi Order. It's rather a soulless way to look at the potential of a narrative design. And we've talked a lot about this, and it kind of got me thinking about, yeah, he's right, as far as looking at the prequel era Jedi Order. But it makes me kind of think about, like if Luke was to test Rey, for example, in Episode 8, would her midichlorian count, would that be something he would continue to use, or is it a primitive thing, do you think, in your guys' mind?
I know what I think that sort of died out with the Jedi Order, and they sort of realized we got away from the spiritual side of the Force, and we got so caught up in the minutia and numbers and taking ourselves out of connecting to it, trying to kind of put it into a little glass jar, but you can't do that. It's spiritual in addition to being physical, and if you take away one and overemphasize the other, then you don't have balance. And maybe that's why there wasn't balance in the Force, or maybe another reason why there wasn't balance in the Force.
No, yeah, I agree with you, and I don't even know if it's necessarily a balance thing, although that fits perfectly. It's absolutely valid. But I think, yeah, there's no way. I think part of the storytelling goal, not just with the sequel trilogy, but with Star Wars in general, you see it in Rebels. You saw it starting to pop up in the later seasons of the Clone Wars. But I think a lot of the storytelling goal here is that whatever you thought you knew about how Jedi and or the Force was supposed to work, like, you might have to let a lot of that dogma go, because it's getting away from why anyone wants to believe in this stuff in the first place, and it's sort of minimizing the sort of miracles that you can make with that sort of that focus, that centeredness, and I think that's kind of what we're going to see going forward. I mean, it's just my own personal speculation. I don't really have any inside information to back this up, but it just seems from a storytelling perspective, like Luke's not going to be tapping into a lot of that old Jedi dogma. Like maybe his first temple was an attempt at that, and obviously it blew up in his face. So he definitely has no real reason to try that again. Rey was raised outside of it, and sort of like Luke, she's going to have her own perspective on how things should work. The reason Luke even is successful in the original trilogy is because he refuses to listen to what Yoda and Obi-Wan are telling him regarding his dad. If it was up to Yoda and Obi-Wan, the old order, then he would have just straight up murdered his father, and he would have sold himself short. He would have condemned his dad unnecessarily, and we wouldn't have gotten the happy ending that we got. But because he came at it from a fresh perspective, from a perspective way more in tune with the Force, I think, he ends up winning. And I think we're going to see a version of that with Rey, where even though Luke had his successes and Luke had his victory, things obviously went a little sideways for him as well. I think Rey is there to reset him. Rey is there to learn from his mistakes, because he did make them, and he's going to keep making them. And it's supposed to sort of, I think Rey's purpose is to sort of be a palate cleanser, like, and get back to that balance that you were talking about.
Like Luke was.
Yeah, like we're going to think about the Force in a new way. We're going to burn off. This is one of my favorite philosophies. Burn off all the stuff that you don't need. And I think that's the purpose Rey and maybe even Finn are going to fulfill in the sequel trilogy. And it's kind of what you see Ahsoka doing in Clone Wars and Rebels. It's what Qui-Gon Jinn would have done in the prequels had he lived long enough, is burn off all the stuff you don't need in order to make yourself sleek, centered, and focused to move forward. And I think that helps bring balance, not just in your life, but in everyone else's life who's around you. Like, your circle of influence, the more centered you are, the more balanced you are, the better it's going to be for everyone around you. It's going to improve their lives, and it's going to improve your life. So I think that's the overarching philosophy of the Force, and I think that's why you can take it out of Lucas's fiction and apply it to your own life, the way Pablo was tweeting about back in September.
It's almost like you can say, when you said that, it made me think, like Qui-Gon, an amazing example. He comes from a place of action. He's not constantly in a place of reacting. He's not an anxious Jedi, right? Mm-hmm. If you're not in touch like that, then you're not centered. And when you're centered, you're not anxious. You're able to fully open up to what your capabilities are. And that leads beautifully to his last little section. And it's almost like, I don't know, it's fortuitous. Here we go. He says, the prequel Jedi have systemized their methods at the expense of spirituality and intuition, tying into what we all said. They are more order than Jedi. Characters like Jocasta Nu and Ki-Adi-Mundi embody that. Others like Dooku, Qui-Gon, and Anakin don't. But there's more to the Force than just Jedi or Sith. There's more to potential than middies, just like there's more to genius than grades. And I definitely have a lot to say about that last part.
Yeah, I was gonna say, he mentions there's more to Jedi and Sith, and I think like you said, Bobby, we're seeing this throughout, these new Star Wars stories we're seeing. We kind of saw at the end of Clone Wars with Yoda and learning the Force, and we see it most recently, I think, with the Bendu in Kanan and Rebels.
Yeah.
And I even think we see it in Jedi with Yoda. He's kind of figuring these things out too. And Ahsoka, we mentioned Ahsoka being the gray Jedi in a sense, kind of figuring these things out for herself as well. And I think it's such a wonderful way to put it. But yeah, it just rolls through all these characters through Star Wars and seeing these outside characters, and most recently, they talk about the Bendu in Rebels, and I think he's such a wonderful character. He's so I don't know he's like the Star Wars Santa Claus to me. I don't know, it's weird. It's just he's just a fun character, but yet he embodies what the Force kind of is, right? I mean, he's not either side; he just is, and it's so cool to see these characters kind of come out of this and kind of give us these little tidbits of how the Force continues to react in this universe.
Yeah, and to touch on something you brought up that sort of sparked off in my mind, the thing that you're sort of getting at there without coming out and saying it is that a lot of these Jedi that we're talking about in these new stories, like you said, Yoda in the Clone Wars, Ahsoka in Clone Wars and Rebels, Rey, even Luke, although we're not quite sure how that story is going to play out. It's a matter of them realizing that they still have much to learn. And that's partially why the Jedi fell. They started adhering too close to midichlorians. It's partially why our education numbers, don't do as well as we want them to, because we force all of our teachers not to focus on their students, but focus on test numbers and such. It's that we get to a certain point and we feel like we don't have anything else to learn. And so we stop opening ourselves up to new experiences, new insights, and we effectively halt ourselves from learning anything more. And I think that's part of, trusting in the Force. Like you have to keep your eyes and your ears open, no matter how accomplished you might become, no matter how well you do your job. There is always a way for you to figure out how to do it better, how to deepen your experience, how to think about things in a way that opens up new avenues of insight and ability. And then you can go down those avenues and do everything in your life just a little bit better. But you have to be willing to want to learn. And that's a problem with little kids. Sometimes little kids end up having problems in school, not because they're not capable, because nobody has ever showed them how to want it. You have to teach someone how to learn before they can start learning, which is weird, but that's the truth. And a lot of the old Jedi didn't want to learn anymore. They refused to learn. They refused to accept the idea that there was something out there that they didn't know, and they would start just hand waving things or refusing them out of hand. And you see that problem in real life all the time. How many people do you have problems with in your life precisely because they refuse to listen to a new perspective, an outside perspective? They get comfortable in where they are, and anything else that could shake that comfort is the enemy, and they don't want to hear about it. They just want you to shut up. They do not want you to introduce any new information, any new perspective, because to do that disrupts the comfortable little rut that they have found themselves in, right? And the Force and the Jedi are absolutely at their best about keeping your mind open, keeping your eyes open, keeping your heart open, and trying to figure out how best to make yourself better and make other people better. And I think that's partially, like Yoda becomes the Jedi Master that we all love and respect because he learns too late, but he still learns and he still tries to fix it, that he needs to know more, and he's not as smart as he thinks he is. What's the quote? The wise man is the man who knows that he knows nothing.
Yep, that's Aristotle.
Yeah, there you go. And that's the Jedi ethos right there, I think. Like wisdom is only attained when you are willing to admit that there is so much more that you could know, and you need to be ready to learn it at all times.
Aristotle pretty much said, I'm the wisest man in the world because I know what I don't know.
Yeah.
And that's hard. I think ego comes into play for people, right?
It does, yeah.
You know, if only there was someone here that was a teacher that could talk about this. How's it going? I think there's two things that are going on at exactly the same time here. One, as we mentioned before, the Jedi forget about their essence, their building blocks, what makes them them. They make it more about order than connecting into the spiritual side of things and trying to force things, no pun intended, to fit what they believe. No wonder that Palpatine talks about their dogmatic views. He believes maybe he's got a more pure view of the Sith. Now, obviously, he tries to manipulate it. We know the Sith wish to control the Force ultimately, but maybe that's why initially he soured on them. It'll be interesting to see if we ever find that out. I'm sure that we will. But the whole idea of there's more to potential than middies, there's more to genius than grades. Mm-hmm. I can think right now of a handful of students throughout the years who were so blindingly, insanely smart, like just wonderfully intelligent beyond belief. But they wouldn't study, or they wouldn't come to school, or they wouldn't take things seriously because they thought it was easy for them. And and that might be, but part of genius, you've got knowledge, you've got wisdom, you've got intelligence. Knowledge is what you know. Intelligence is how you apply it. And wisdom is kind of the moral sense of right and wrong and how to apply your knowledge and intelligence to better serve humanity. And I think when you look at this from this point of view, that's why it gets a little bit of foggy, because it's not about midichlorians, even though that obviously helps and it makes it happen, but it's how you apply it, how you apply yourself, and how open you are to realizing that if we are an energy field, that helps to contribute to the Force, then we have to be open to spreading it out as many ways as possible.
Yeah, see, isn't this way more fun than simply watching something for the 300th time solely for the nostalgic thrill? Isn't this way more fun? Like I just don't understand. I don't understand people who watch this and is like, keep everything but my escapist fantasy out of Star Wars. Like, how can you still have fun with Star Wars after the fourth viewing if you don't allow for things like philosophy, politics, mythology? If you don't allow for those things to come in and you don't take the deep dives through all that deep water and find out what's swimming down there, like, how are you still having fun with this stuff, you guys? This is more fun. I've had more fun talking with you guys for the past 40-some minutes about the Force and its real-world allegories than I have in a very long time. And I want to thank you guys very much for letting me be part of this.
Oh, man, thank you. I mean, trying to come up with a topic just sort of hit me, and then I knew you were coming on. I'm like, this is going to be awesome. Because Bobby's so open-minded and you're able to articulate things in a particular way. And I knew that Corey and I mean, heck, if we would have started this show with the three of us from the beginning, my goodness, that would have been interesting. No, I think that's so cool, and I appreciate your kind words. The beauty about this saga for me is the mythology, and one of the reasons I love teaching mythology is because it teaches us about our culture, it teaches us about ourselves, our values, our beliefs, our systematic way of viewing what we believe heroism is, how we think life should go in a perfect idealized sense. And of course that's impossible, but what is not impossible is trying to be the best version of yourself that you can be. And when the Jedi forget about that and think they've already got it, then they know nothing. I mean, one thing one of my mentors told me once, the day that you think you're the best teacher, you're actually the worst, because you have to learn all the time how to teach, because different kids are going to be inspired in different ways. And you have to be prepared for that. And they're going to end up inspiring you. You become a mirror for one another.
Yeah.
I like it.
All right. Anything else that we want to talk about? Bobby, I know it was fun having you as a mystery guest. We would definitely, it's great. It's great. I can't wait to see how people react to it. And I'm going to pick your brain about it after we sign off here. But
Well, I'm fairly certain once people realize there was a mystery, there's probably going to be more than a few people who don't listen to just one Star Wars podcast. They do it right. They listen to like 4 or 5. They get deep into the community and they bounce around from podcast to podcast and follow guests from their show to someone else's show. And I'm betting as soon as you said mystery guest, there was at least 3 or 4 people that were like, "Oh, guys, Bobby's going to show up. That Hobbit's going to show up and he's going to start running his yap. I bet you that little dude with the goofy little hat is going to show up and he's going to start using 15-syllable words."
That's all good.
Monosyllabic, yeah.
Yeah.
Monosyllabic.
That's funny. Well, I mean, so basically you're the midichlorians of Star Wars podcasts.
Yeah, Bobby is the Force.
That's
right. Yeah, I like that. I'll take that. I'll absolutely take it. I've never
put that on your business card.
Dude, I'm gonna turn 40 next year. I was born in the same year Star Wars was. In all of my years, I don't think I've ever heard anyone say I was the Force. That's thank you very much for that, Corey. That's very cool.
Well, that was me. I want the credit. It was
okay. All right. Dan. All right.
Oh man! So where can people reach out and get in touch with you if they want to ask you a question? Just say hello. I know you're very active on the Star Wars podcast Facebook page, which is a heck of a lot of fun. What other places?
You can just basically find me on Twitter, just at Bobby Roberts PDX. That's where it's probably easiest to get a hold of me. But yeah, if you're already on Facebook and like I was saying earlier, if you are definitely a part of this podcast community, I mean, you don't have to do a show, although I've found like 40% of the people who listen to podcasts are also podcasters themselves. That's basically, that's kind of how the math works out. But I mean, like if you just listen to a bunch of podcasts, Star Wars podcasts specifically, if you're bouncing from Coffee to Kenobi over to Tashi Station, over to Star Wars Report, over to Brews and Blasters, if you're making those leaps, like then go ahead if you're already on Facebook and check out Tyler Westhouse's Star Wars Podcast Alliance. You got a bunch of podcasters in there mixing it up with a ton of podcast listeners. And yeah, it's the real benefit I've found, not only just because of the conversation, because the conversation is good, but the real benefit is because it's a closed group. You can post about Star Wars to your heart's content and none of your friends or family have to see all the notifications that would otherwise pop up. They have no idea. So you're saving your friends and your family a lifetime of Facebook grief by joining the Star Wars Podcast Alliance. So I would say if you're a Facebook user and you listen to at least 2 Star Wars podcasts, it behooves you to check that out. But yeah, if you just want to, toss me a question or, pick my brain a little bit, I'm at Bobby Roberts PDX.
And do you have any upcoming projects or things that you want to give a shout out for?
Well, no, I can't really think of anything. Well, no. Oh, wait. I do in my spare time tinker with podcast production a little. There's a show by esteemed online critics. They've been around since the Old West days, before the entertainment press became the multi-limbed behemoth that it was. Scott Weinberg, who's one of the horror kings of the internet. Like if you know anything about horror films and you've been on the internet at any point, you have run across Scott Weinberg and his wisdom. He is teamed up with Drew McWeeny. Most of you guys know him from HitFix. He used to be on Ain't It Cool News. He was a screenwriter, and he's definitely one of the most well-known online film critics that there's ever been. Those two came together and decided they wanted to do a podcast called 80s All Over. And the conceit is this. They are going to go through every month of 1980 in order and review every movie that came out in that month.
Wow.
And they're going to do that for the entirety of the 1980s.
Wow.
That's a good year to do it.
It's a long run, yeah.
It's 5 years. They've done the math. It's going to be a 5-year run because they do shows every other week. So it's going to be 5 years. They will get through the entirety of the 80s, every major release, month by month in order. That's their idea. And I'm helping produce that for them. So you can go to 80sallover.com and you can listen to it. It's fascinating, not only because of all the movies that a lot of people didn't know even existed, starring like legitimate movie stars, but the insights into movies that you did know of coming from guys who were there as they were being released, revisiting them from the future, just sort of hearing the stories that went into the making of these movies, the marketing of these movies. It's a really weird, clear, and insightful look back into a time period that gets really romanticized when maybe it probably shouldn't. So I don't talk on that at all. I save all the talking for other people's podcasts, apparently. But I do cut it together and I do produce it. So if you've got a Jones for classic film, go to 80sallover.com and let Drew McWeeny and Scott Weinberg lead you through the decade 1 month at a time.
That sounds amazing, and we will absolutely do that and encourage our Coffee with Kenobi family to do the same. Bobby, thanks as always so much for being on. You have an open seat at our coffee table anytime you would like to come on, my friend. You make sure you have a great Christmas and happy holidays, and thanks again for being on.
Well, thank you guys, and the same to you, and here's to Rogue One knocking our socks off.
More to add, do you?
Our topic for show number 51 is our pre- and post-reactions to Rogue One. We'll be recording live from the downtown Peoria, the museum, where we get to broadcast before the premiere of Rogue One. We're extremely excited about it, so please join us online and on the podcast. You hear us talking about it right before, and then there are immediate reactions when we walk out of that theater. Be sure to send us an email or an MP3 with your thoughts, comments, questions, and opinions of Rogue One, a Star Wars story, to feedback@coffeewithkenobi.com.
I like the sound of that.
Chewie, get us out of here!
If you would like to respond to our question of the show, have a comment, or just want to say hello, send us an email or MP3 at feedback@coffeewithkenobi.com. Or if you have a specific question or comment for either of us individually, email us at danz@coffeewithkenobi.com or coryc@coffeewithkenobi.com. Or visit us at coffeewithkenobi.com and click on the Contact Us section, or comment on one of the stories featured on the site. If you enjoy the show, please write a review in iTunes or Stitcher. You can also like the show on Facebook at facebook.com/coffeewithkenobi, as well as keep up to date at our Twitter feed at Coffee with Kenobi. You can also find us on Tumblr at coffeewithkenobi.tumblr.com. If you enjoy the jazz music, the album is Eye to Eye by Steve Torok.
Give the evacuation code signal.
That's it for show number 60 of Coffee with Kenobi. A huge thank you to Bobby Roberts for being our guest and for discussing the nature of the Force. Be sure to follow Bobby on Twitter and be on the lookout for his future guest appearances on more Star Wars podcasts.
And we couldn't do any of this without people like Jason Hall, Dennis Keithley, Angela Souse, Mediocre Jedi, Adam Leonard, Christopher Ripley, Sawara Salih, Jared Cantor, BJ Smith, Eric Strathers, Nick DiCo, Aaron Harris, Mark Suter, and Mike Audette for their contributions to our Coffee with Kenobi Patreon page. If you'd like to be a Patreon contributor or find out more about the incentives, check out our webpage or show notes for more information.
You can also help out the show through our Amazon.com affiliate, buy Rogue One tickets through our Fandango banner, and check out cufflinks.com, Her Universe, Zach Designs, and Steiner Sports affiliate links on the site. Be sure to check out the other shows in our Coffee with Kenobi library: Legends Library, Rebels Reactions, Comics with Kenobi, and Lattes with Leia, which are all here on the Coffee with Kenobi feed.
A huge thank you to our media specialist, Lisa Dullard, our Coffee with Kenobi bloggers, Nick DiCo, Jason Brame, everyone who contributed to this show, and all of you out there who listen and email Coffee with Kenobi. Don't forget to send us your comments and opinions on our topic for show number 61, our pre- and post-reactions to Rogue One, a Star Wars story.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
There's no one here.